We are live. Hey there.
Hey. What you up to?
So, how are you?
I'm hanging in there. You look pretty today.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I decided, since it was the last day of the session and the holiday season, that I put on some makeup.
Is that the lady in red over there? Are you the lady in red?
Which I don't usually do, sitting in the house by myself. So it is just for you.
Thank you. Thank you. Where are our people at?
Well, I was just reading, I've been so discombobulated. I barely got a invitation done. I finally got one done late this afternoon. And so I just saw where Nicole had posted the agenda about 4 hours ago.
Oh, good.
But I don't know if I got a message about it because I didn't see it. Usually it pops up on my phone when something gets posted to the group, but I've been in my own zone, so.
Hey, Leonie.
And
hello.
Hey, Leonie.
Hello.
So I just saw a message from Nicole that she's going to be about 10 minutes late.
Okay.
And I was just saying, Leonie, I just now saw the agenda. I haven't even read it. I just saw that it's here.
Okay.
Did you get it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I saw it in the in my feed.
Okay. I didn't see it.
Let me take a look.
It's in the session 9.
Yeah, okay, I see them, yeah.
Okay. And did you get it, Kim?
No, where are you looking?
In the session 9 group.
Okay.
Yeah, so why don't y'all take a minute? I don't know, do you download it normally or you just open it up, whatever you do?
Yeah, downloading. It's just opening up now. Oh, what a day.
You had one of those days too?
I am. Since we're live, I can't talk about it, but.
Okay. I got it. I got you.
You catching a cold? Are you tired? Your voice sounds raspy.
No, I caught a cold. I just came. I got back from California on Friday, and I caught the cold on Thursday. And I got in my house for the first time yesterday, and I'm a bit worried about it because everyone who's caught this cold has been sick for several weeks.
Oh.
So.
Well, I'm sure you've heard.
Earlier today, I lost my voice. So.
I swear by oregano oil.
Oh.
Yeah, my sister went and bought me some of that yesterday.
Oh, did she? Good.
Yeah.
Good. Are they the pre-mixed capsules?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the brand that she uses. She uses this organic brand of oil of oregano. Because I've taken it before in the water and it not only tastes bad, my digestion does not enjoy it.
Okay.
So.
Oh. Okay. So you're back home?
Yeah, I'm back home for 3 weeks, and then I'm going to be in Florida, January.
Oh wow!
Just for a week in January. So.
Busy.
Yeah. I'm trying to, there's a bit of a sticky situation, so I might have some other travel. Right now, the plan is that I was gonna go to England, and now it looks like I'm gonna go to Germany, Poland, and then England in the summer.
Wow.
Wow.
So,
And all of this is with the nonviolent communication groups?
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
You say that so sadly.
Well, you know, we have some time at 6:30 to hang out. This is time for our private time, so.
We have time.
Yeah. And what's going on, Kim?
Me?
Yeah, Kim.
I guess it's I'm better. I had a rough week, and now I seem to be coming out of something. So yeah. All right, my daughter's home. She came home yesterday, and so now it's negotiating what the holidays are going to be like with a teenager. Because I can do nothing, right? I want to do a Kwanzaa celebration, but that's about it. I'm sorry, Michelle?
Oh. I said you have to tell us later how the Thanksgiving went.
It was fun. Actually, it was very nice.
Cool. Yeah. I love Kwanzaa. That's my
I think we're
favorite.
going to do that. And if you want to stop by and Michelle, I'll shoot you an invitation.
Yeah, yeah.
I guess we can get started.
I guess so.
Did she say 10 minutes? You just waited 2 more minutes? We've waited 8 already.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
She said 10.
That sounds good to me. I favor that.
Yeah. So,
what else are you people reading besides this book?
I am not currently reading anything.
Really?
Our next book came. I just got it out of the mail today. So I plan to start reading it over whatever break we take.
Right.
Pretty, it's a pretty colorful. I like bright colors.
Yeah.
Colorful cover.
There's a book club called The Well-Read Black Girl, and their website has a group of women reading that book on the photo.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here comes the sun.
What are you reading, Kim?
I'm reading poetry. So I just finished reading Maxine Kingston Hung, I think that's her name. And so I finished reading that today. And now I'm reading Sonia Sanchez, Wounded in the House of a Friend.
Oh.
So this is more my speed.
Yeah.
And I'm also reading Langston Hughes and Roxane Gay. Roxane Gay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The thing for me is trying to finish a book. Like, I don't mind starting books, but it's finishing the books.
Right.
I know. Well, it is 5:10. You want to get us started, Kim?
We can start with introductions, and then we can just read what Nicole has written until she gets here. So I am Kim. I'm from New York, and I'm happy to be here. Who wants to go next?
All right. And I'm Odom. I'm in Brooklyn, New York, and also happy to be here. And I wish you all happy holidays.
Yeah.
And I am Leonie, and I'm in Toronto, Canada. Welcome.
Thank you. So I'm going to pull up the agenda, which Nicole prepared for us very nicely. And this is the Global Black Feminist Reading Circle, Session 9. And we are reading the Crunk Feminist Collection, and we're on the section Self-Care, This Saith the Lord. And let's see here. So looking ahead, I don't know what looking ahead is because we're going to take a break after this. And the topics covered here are, what's this? Oh, that's not the topic. So Black girls learn to love hard, a concrete love, at a spite of love, even though love and in between crying love, they learn love hard. I hope I read that right. And does somebody want to read the summary?
I'm going to skip reading tonight to rest my voice, if that's okay.
Okay.
Okay, I'll read it. But I also have the titles of the essays in tonight's section, which are Life is Not a Fairy Tale, Depression by Robin Boylorn, These Days I Hate Going to the Gynecologist by Sheri Davis-Faulkner, To School Beatitudes, 10 Academic Survival Tips by Brittney Cooper, Love Me Like You Love Your Lover by Aisha Durham, Loving the Case for Radical Empathy by Susana Morris, Black Autumn on Black Anger, Tiredness, and the Limits of Self-Care by Brittney Cooper, Disappearing Acts, Unreciprocated Interest, and Other Rhythms to My Blues by Robin Boylorn, How to Say No and When to Say Yes by Robin Boylorn, and the outro. So the summary that Nicole Jackson Wilson wrote goes like this. How does one precisely describe the final chapter of the Crunk Feminist Collection? What language might one use? To begin with a allusion referencing the writings and lived experience of Audre Lorde, a Black feminist powerhouse whose name will forever be spoken in the digital public sphere, I am certain Crunk contributors, Brittney C. Cooper, Robert M. Boylorn, Sheri Davis-Faulkner, Aisha Durham, and Susana Morris, so much more than a call to action, reflection. In fact, I can think of no language more precise than a release. By centering Black women in conversations about self-love and self-care, the chapter engages cleansing, cleaning, and purging as invisible labor, the other side of what Keith Lehman describes as old Black work. The chapter signifies a catharsis. Indeed, the final chapter, I contend, is cathartic and operates as a catharsis, medicine, and/or a healing balm. Reading this chapter, I'll admit, caused me to stop every damn thing. I had to hear what the contributors wished to communicate in love. That is, to remix Flannery O'Connor's title, The Life We Save Has to Be Our Own, from introduction to outro. The chapter makes a strong case for reconfiguring self-care and self-love as self-recognition. While their arguments unfold dissimilarly, their tones form an invitational clarion call, a call out, as hip-hop feminists term it. So where you at? Who you with? I characterize the writer's clarion call, evidencing a feminized Black cool, i.e. code switching, hybridity, and double consciousness, as invitational because the sister outsiders make clear that they are intentionally inciting dialogue with a specific community of readers. As they explain, our community of readers disagrees, challenges, and even trolls us. But even when we are exasperated and overwhelmed, is home. Wow, Nicole. Where are you?
Here I am. Let me see here. Okay. Hi, everyone.
Awesome.
Hi, Nicole.
Hi. You all already introduced yourselves. I'm Nicole Wilson, and I'm joining today from College Station, Texas. And I'm facilitating.
Well, take it from here.
Thank you all for being so gracious there. I am. Unfortunately, Mike is having tests done in Houston, so I have had to do everything. Sweet twin sesses here. We've been getting things together. All right. So let's carry on. Thank you, Ms. Jill. I really enjoyed hearing you read. My goodness. You're so beautiful when you read. You should be on the recordings, like book recordings.
You know, people have told me that before.
Yes, you should be making that money, Michelle. Real. Okay, so
somebody long time ago, I was doing voiceovers.
Yes, should. What I was doing, okay, so as I was thinking about the summary, I know that this chapter is primarily, kind of asking us to think about self-care and self-love. But most importantly, I found it to really pull self-recognition. Like, what does it mean for Black women to recognize ourselves and what we need at the most vulnerable moment? So yeah, I tried to unfold those into it. So with question number one, I just wanted to start with the begin with the end in mind. And so I said, let's work through the messiness of the word home. And the quote that Michelle read when Cooper explained, three of them wrote that part, the outro. Three of them contributed to it. So, but when they explained that this community is home for them, extracting the word home, right? So I said, Crunk contributors deliberately use this term. Why? What's home for Black women? What does it feel like to be home? How has home changed over the course of time for you? Does this term automatically presume or create borders? Who does it include? Who's left out? Can Black women be, to borrow Wendy Walters' terminology, can Black women be at home in diaspora? That was really a question that I wanted to ask. Can we be at home in diaspora? So, or any of those little miniature questions there. Just wanted to know what you all thought.
Anybody? Wow, Nicole. I don't know, you know, I mean, it's the meaning of home has definitely evolved for me over the years. Somewhere along the line, I learned to feel at home in my own skin, which I think is related to all of the moving around. You know, I really grew up like a gypsy. And my adult life has been like that. And so I'm not from any place. I don't have, you know, the kind of roots that most people have in a specific community. And always the new kid on the block, the stranger. And so really my own skin is the one constant that I have been able to rely on. And you know, and the people that have been close to me, many of whom I would have presumed would be on the lifetime path with me are not. And you know that poem, Seasons? It really is the story of my life. So people that I would have thought would have, you know, really been there forever and ever are not. And some people that I would have never imagined are, you know. So it's a very, I've developed a very kind of, I think, universal way of looking at home. And so my answer to the last part of your question, could I be at home in the diaspora? You know, I believe that I very quickly find a comfort zone wherever I am. And my spirit is just one of, it's really one of universal love. And, you know, this is my birthday week. And I always get a truckload of shout outs on Facebook. And I haven't done thank you yet for that. But I've just been in this really reclusive kind of mood the last few days, which is, I seem to always get in around my birthday. But I was in a bar, on one of those days, I was in a Barbra Streisand kind of mood. And that song, Guilty, I was thinking about posting it with my thank you, because it you know, it sometimes it feels like I get all this love energy from the virtual world. But sometimes I also feel like people are really afraid to connect with others online because of all the kind of jealousy, all the kinds of ways that we want to own our friendships, our relationships. And so, so I was thinking about that song. So I feel at home online. I feel at home with you all. I feel like I have several different family groupings, and where I feel at home in all of them. And then on the other hand, I've gone through this experience of homelessness. And so there's that. All right. We're not keeping time, but I'm sure I've talked too long.
Wow, that's really nuanced, Michelle. Wow, that's powerful. Really nuanced. Wow. Anyone else?
I could speak to that a little bit. I think for me, this idea of like, yeah, well, I guess the idea of home, I guess I kind of have a problem. I don't know. I'm not really so much. I kind of, I associate it with what we've talked about before in terms of like support. And so depending on what I'm needing is where I go. And for me, it's like, it's support that like by my own design. So in response to my own needs. And I've shared before when we were talking about the sisterhood or whatever, that like, that's not been my experience so much in my life. Particularly to have it something that I would either turn to Black women for, or to get exclusively from Black women, Black people, just because I've grown up in a very diverse circumstance, and my experience is different being born and raised here. Yeah, and when I think of like, I think in terms of how it's changed over the course of time, is that there's been more agency, I guess, in its creation. That's been a significant change. Yeah, so, when I travel to do training or for work, and I'm in circles around nonviolence, those can often feel like home for me, in which there are very few Black people, if any other, who are present. And when I'm with my family, there can be some element of that as well, because we've had some things in common. Yeah. So at the same time too, there is something around the company of Black women as well. I've recently had a lot of conversations around being a person of color and around Blackness, and some friction that's happened because of how I have experienced someone's behavior towards me, white people's behavior towards me. And there's something to be said about like, there's no need to like explain why a thing is offensive with other people of color or other Black women. Excuse me, it's like they get it. You don't have to find the language, because there's enough commonality of experience. So there definitely is some of that I'm discovering. But I don't know if it's so much a place that I settle in as so much as a place that I don't know, it's kind of new, this discovery. Mm.
Wow.
I'm gonna mute myself because I'm gonna keep coughing.
Wow. Thank you so much, Leonie. That makes a lot of sense. Wow.
And I don't look at it so much as a home. It feels more like a blanket, you know, that it's warm and sometimes it's funny and sometimes it's threadbare, but that's funny too. I just love the shorthand that I have with Black women and the jokes that we get that other people may not get, and the jokes that we get at the expense of sometimes our children, sometimes our men, sometimes ourselves. It's just a beauty that I think that's where, and so I guess there is a home because that's where I live. That if any sister wants to come and join me in that space, I welcome you. But if you don't have that space in your heart, you need to keep stepping because I pull back the blanket quickly. So I just love I was just downstairs and the mail woman came and it was a Black woman. And so I said, "Hey sis, come on in. You want me to keep the door open for you?" And I don't know why I gotta call all of us sis. It's so corny, but I still have to do it. So she came in and we started this whole banter about why my mailboxes are so small. And I don't think I would have had that level of conversation with anybody else. Because I said to her, I said, well, the mailbox is 100 years old. And I'm not trying to cut that wall open for bigger mailboxes. They got to make mail smaller. And we just laughed at that. And it was over. And that's the home. For me, that's the home that she gets the fact that I'm not going to spend $1,000 to cut that wall open and put new mailboxes in.
Yeah.
It's not on my top priority list. And so I love that space that we have with each other. I love how we have it in this group, especially that line that we have, I ain't trucking with no man no more. You know, it's just, I adore that space. It's like a freedom that we have with each other. So yeah, I like that, Nicole. I think that it is a home, and I never thought about it that way before. So thank you. I think that home is within me.
That's beautiful.
You know,
wow.
so anybody's invited to come and sit on the couch, but you know, don't take more than what you brought.
That's it. Isn't that the great lesson of life? I love that, Kim. I was looking at the question again, and I was thinking, would it have been more appropriate for me to ask where is home? Like, I think I was really thinking about defining, how do Black women define, like, what, I guess I should have made it explicit too, what is our definition? Anyway, y'all did the damn thing. So, so thank you there. I read that book. I visited Spelman. I did a campus tour with some young Black girls a few years ago, maybe 4 years ago. And so I picked that book up at Spelman, At Home in Diaspora by Wendy L. Walters. And since then, I cannot rid myself of that. I keep thinking about it. I'm almost obsessed with this idea. I keep wondering if I am or can be at home in diaspora, because I do feel connected to Black women, whether they are, share a domestic, space, that landscape, shall I say, or if it's global. Like, for some reason, I feel connected. Like when we were reading Audre Lorde's text, I got when she gets to Germany and she's like, okay, now where's the sisters? Where the Black women? And so anyway, I'm probably going to be parsing that for the rest of my life. I've got to travel more. I'm definitely making plans to visit Ghana and Liberia, to name a few. And so I'm going to be traveling more. And so I just need to see these spaces, these places. I need to see Black people in these various spaces and places, and just really wanting to see, what life is like for them. and just get to know. I know some people say it's a fictive imaginary, a fictive kinship in this social imaginary, but anyway, I just need to see for myself. I've even thought about doing my DNA, my African ancestry. So anyway, I've been searching. Okay, well, why don't we move to number 2? So I posted the video there, number 2. I referenced Cardi B, who had like this very hot breakout song. She is a reality TV star, but she won an award that previously Lauryn Hill had won. And so she had this very hot breakout song, and it was like it's so interesting, like a feminist womanist manifesto. It was very working class and diasporic, if you will. So anyway, so I said in number 2, in outro, the contributors convey that they wanted to say things they were unable to say anywhere else. And they wanted to be part of shaping feminist and pop culture discourse. In this way, they used digital feminism to counteract the silence and violence that kills far too many Black women academics way too soon. This is important work. Cue hip hop MC Cardi B, they make bloody moves. This work communicates that there is room for every sister at the table. Tell us about your table. Who's seated? What, if anything, do they bring to the table? And then my penultimate question, I guess, was, is there room for Black men at our tables? Why? Why not?
I went first last time.
Well, I guess for me, I would say that my table is very wide, and it's the same, almost to the same answer to the last question, is that anybody can sit at my table. The goal is, can you stay at the table before being asked to leave? Because you cannot be disruptive. There's no time for you to be disruptive. And I mean, there are silly moments, and even in the silly, you can't disrupt the silly either. So I just love, there's a woman, she is a refugee from, oh God, I forget which of the African nations. And she comes over and we just laugh and joke as if, she used to live down the street, because there's a warmth there that if you don't judge people and you invite them to come in. And the more I talked to her, the more I started to realize that she is a fierce woman, even though, her English skills are limited because she's immigrant here. But she's teaching me so much, so that if I say that only X, Y, and Z can come to the table, only academics, only this, only that, it limits my growth. So I love to see who could bring what to me, and not use quote unquote white standards to say who's at the table and who's not, because that does us a disservice, because we have so many different ways that we have been educated. Can men sit at my table? Certainly. The goal is that they too cannot take from the table. They hopefully are coming with a genuine spirit, and that they don't want to do any harm. But again, it's just real clear to me that whatever your issues are, and we all have issues, you can't sit down with them. You got to deal with those on your time privately. And so, being somebody who is a survivor of abuse and things like that, I just need to make it clear that I am watching, and that I'm protective of the young sisters at the table, and I would even be protective of the men at the table. That we can't bring the abuse that and the oppression that we find in this country to our table. And I think so often, you know, the father gets kicked at work, and then he comes home and he yells at the wife, and the wife yells at the child, and the child yells at the dog. And that I can't have at the table, because we can't treat ourselves the way the oppressor is treating us, even in our circles. So those are the people who would be asked to lead. Thanks.
Oh, that's powerful, Kim. I will try. I was thinking through this question because I've been thinking a lot about a seat at the table, not just because like I really love Solange's album, Beyonce's sister, and it's titled A Seat at the Table. Because that feels, oh my gosh, that album is so beautiful. She's so woke. But also I was thinking in the context of our reading circle as well. Like I was wondering, you know, I know it's a global Black feminist reading circle, and I remember Joelle being a part of this, and, you know, offering so much.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't necessarily know if he knew, you know, what he contributed. I know it probably, you know, it was taking a risk. I mean, although he was in a company of Black women, but I was like thinking about when I've been in a company and have been like, you know, one of the only, you know, whatever representative of a specific group, if I take that on. So sometimes being an only woman, being an only Black person, or being the only Black woman, or being the only person whose socioeconomic origin, growing up in my family of origin, socioeconomics wise, was working class. So anyway, I was just wondering, like, when I think about, you know, what possibilities we have in this reading circle for 2018, I don't know, when other men join us, and then what that looks like when you're talking about gender question with Black men. So my husband and I had a conversation this week, you know, and it's an ongoing conversation. And I keep trying to explain to him, like, you cannot keep telling Black women that, oh, you know, the sarcasm of, I don't know why they're trying to be linked to white feminists. They have, you know, their concerns are not necessarily race-based, and Black women and Black men have to stick together, and so on and so forth. But I'm also saying Black men have to acknowledge sexism and how it operates and how it's operationalized, how they can deploy sexism or sexist language, sexist whatever, different components, different factions there. So it's not enough to keep saying, well, we're oppressed. You know, I keep thinking back to the women's studies, Black women's studies primer. All the women are white, all the Blacks are men, but some of us are brave. And so that's why I keep explaining to my husband, yes, gender, sexism, those types of the oppressions around those are real. And Black women, if we are just usurped into this thing of it's just race, then, you know, we're not really critically engaging here. So if more men join our reading circle, I would just hope that they are willing to acknowledge it and to do the work, you know. All right, well, I'm going to pass the baton. Anyone else there?
I could speak to this. For me, in terms of who's invited to the table, it's like I have a need for spaciousness right now. I really, and anyone is welcome at my table as long as they kind of give room for myself and for others. I want to think that I would create a table that gives spaciousness to others as well. Yeah.
Nice.
Well, that's beautiful, Leonie. Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, I just want to ditto everybody. And I have not seen the Cardi B, what is it, a song?
Yeah.
All right, so I'll watch that tonight. And just say, you know, in terms of and our group, I wish some would come along. Joelle was a very appreciated member of the group. You know, I think he knew that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that we scared him away.
Oh.
You know, he really is friends with Georgette.
Mm-hmm.
And when Georgette couldn't be here anymore because, you know, of what she's dealing with, then I think that was the end of the story for Joelle. But as long as he was along for the ride, I enjoyed his company and contributions.
It was so interesting how he would, when he would read your questions.
I think we have to, if we really want men, you know, or just more members, we have to really try to actively recruit them.
Mm-hmm.
I have not done that, you know, just because I've got so much time and energy. But my experience, well, all right. I did the other group. He's gonna beat me up, but he knows I love him. I did the other group, the Revolutionary Love Leadership Series. We did a session with Bill Peters as the co-host.
Mm.
And it was basically just Bill, me, Vanita, and a friend of Bill's, this guy, Sharif. And so we were reading a book that Bill published. Bill is a prolific poet, and he's published, I don't know, hundreds of titles, not only of himself, but a lot of other people. So he's, you know. So we were reading a book that he had published on the Black male experience.
Huh. Wow.
But
Okay.
Bill said early into the process that, you know, he wasn't going to be doing notes and agendas and writing questions. that he had read the book in the process of having it published. And so he was, in fact, you know, not only his experience as a Black male, but his experience as the publisher, he certainly was competent, capable of engaging in dialogue about the book.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of his willingness to be a participatory participant.
Right.
It really was not there. And, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if that were the case with a number of men who like to. Bill is a very thoughtful, intellectual kind of person. So I'm not talking about Bill anymore, but I'm talking about generally that type of person who likes to engage in dialogue and likes to explore all kinds of issues, but a structured study, slow kind of deep way of getting to know a set of material is just not what they do. So, for example, there's another, I'm not sure if it's the Well-Read Black Girl book group or another one with Black women. And I was looking at their syllabus one day. I probably told you all this before. And I think it was that they read one book a month, and then they come together and have one conversation about the book. And that's actually a fairly common model for book groups. But, you know, my concern always is that somewhere along the line, we're not making connections. We're not really understanding things, I think, at the depth that we need to be led into conscious, intentional change in our lives. And so you talk about the conversation with your husband, Nicole, and you know, you'll talk about, you know, Black men just can't keep saying these same things over and over again. Well, yeah, they can. Because if you're not being very intentional about your learning process, you know, if you're just listening to what other people say and saying, yeah, you know, I think that makes sense. And, you know, and that's what I've seen. And I have 3 brothers, and, you know, and that's what I've seen a lot of how men in particular operate. It's a follow the leader, alpha dog type of scene going on. And even if you, and a Black man told me this, even if you have another opinion, a better opinion, you dare not speak up in a group of men, you know, for fear of the wrath of hell coming down on you.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I'd love, long story short, I'd love for a man. I know one man. I'm supposed to do another book group with him. We talked about it a long time ago, but he might be willing to join us in this. He doesn't really understand feminism. I think he understands it intuitively, but he's got some of what he's heard other men say going on in his head. And so I don't know if he really wants to do the work and get into it, but he would be great if we could get him to join. So if you all know anybody, Nicole, like your husband, feel free to try to engage them. But you know, I recognize it's a little bit of a challenge. So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm glad you commented on that, because I mean, I think we're fine, but you know, I was just thinking of, in my response, just thinking about Joa. Sometimes I don't know, this might be weird. Sometimes I reflect and I'm thinking of past experiences, right? And I'm wondering, and I'm imagining this person and thinking about what might you have been thinking, going through, not saying at that time. You know, introspecting, I guess, just thinking about certain things. And I thought about Joelle. But actually, you know, I mean, it would be nice, but if not, I think we're okay. And definitely no to my husband, Joy. I definitely he's one of those men. I think it says something, even for, as you said, the difference between our reading circle and the other group that you mentioned. It says something about a willingness to meet weekly, to commit to each other, to care enough about each other, to keep showing up. You know? And so that's, you know, I don't know if my husband every week, because, you know, he'll be thinking like, oh, I wanted to watch the basketball game. Well, that's not a good enough excuse here, you know. So,
Right.
so anyway, I was just thinking about that. But if so, but if not, you know, I think we're fine. I love what we have. Y'all, what y'all think, Kim and Leonie? Y'all love what we have going here too.
So yeah,
I miss Benita's
I'm right there with you.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
I think we progressed, you know, kindly progressed, you know. So
I was hoping she was going to join us tonight.
I do miss her fire because, you know, there were several moments where I just didn't know what Benita might say, but I knew it was going to wake us all up, you know, because Benita was just going to tell it like it is. So, okay.
That's right.
I'm going to read number 4 and then, because I need to just acknowledge.
Are we skipping 3?
Yeah, let's skip 3.
Okay.
So let's skip 3. We're just going to do a 6-word memoir, but.
Okay, I'll be right back.
Okay. So number 4, you all. The list. Okay. I know I hated on Crunkista's employment recommendations last session. For, you know, full disclosure, I want to own that I hated on the list, which is entirely different from simply hating her list. I hated on the list because it baffled me. It felt like another person critiquing how I dress, although her list clearly does not do that. And more importantly, she doesn't even know me to critique how I dress. So I personalized that. I took that personally. In walking back my criticism, I must acknowledge that I learned something meaningful despite my discomfort. I want to use this experience to think through the many lists the writers pose throughout this book, and in this chapter specifically. How to say no and when to say yes, back to school, Beatitudes, to academic survival. And these days, I hate going to the gynecologist. Why lists? Critique the list itself. Is it visually pleasing or not, or the content? But ultimately, I wanted to ask, what do you think about a specific list offered in the text, and why did it resonate with you? So I just want to say that I thought after that moment, I was, you know, thinking, I thought that was a very negative moment for me. I want to own that. It didn't warrant the response that I had given. I hated on her list. And yeah, and it's just, I got to grow beyond that, that foolishness. So the lists that they offered, what did you all think of that? As strategy, as content, what would you say?
Well, for me to go back to the list, I found the list extremely problematic if you were giving advice to young people about how to maintain your culture in corporate America when the list did not necessarily deal with maintaining your culture. It dealt with how to be a mentor to somebody who may not have any cultural differences than the mainstream. So that list was not appropriate in any way, shape, or form for Latinas to maintain their cultural. So it felt like I was coming in because, you know, I had a headache and I came to see the doctor and they say, take off your shoes.
Mm.
And if I'm young enough, I'll take off my shoes and say, oh, they've examined my feet. Something got done. And then I leave and I realize that it did not address the headache. And so that was the problem with the list. However, I love the idea that somebody's looking at the situation and the issues, and they may not have the complete answer, but they tried something and said, well, try these things. Make sure you have a mentor. Make sure that you're looking at leadership. Make sure that, you know, you're trying to dress your way up. Those things were all helpful, but I just didn't see them answer the question. It felt like that saying that you climb to the top of the ladder and then you realize the ladder is up against the wrong wall. So that list troubles me. And some of the other lists trouble me because I just wish they didn't sound so finite, that these are the 6 steps because I said so. As opposed to saying, you know, seek out your own list. Add 3 more things to the bottom here. Go talk to people who are older than you or younger than you and see if you can help build your own bridge.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's good. That's good stuff, Kim. Wow.
Well, thank you, darling.
That makes a lot of sense. Wow. Yeah. I found Cooper's Back to School Beatitudes to be really helpful. Now, I have to say, just you know, if I'm just talking aesthetics here, I don't really like the placement of the list in the text. To me, it just kind of distracts. And I guess it's so different from what I'm accustomed to when I'm reading, you know, I'm reading a book. But I do have to remember that this book, you know, was composed as a result of blog posts. So it would make sense when I have to kind of shift mediums. So when these posts were digital text as opposed to print text, it makes sense that they added those lists. So, but I don't know, just encountering those lists throughout the book, it has made me, you know, kind of step back like, oh, okay, lists. But on another note, I really did enjoy Cooper's Back to School Beatitudes. I think if people don't know, if enough students are not aware of how vicious academia can be. And I'm so glad that she, you know, found a resourceful way to encourage, but yet tell the truth, speak truth to power, if you will, about the academic landscape. So I am very appreciative of that. I especially liked numbers. Let's see here, be a friend. Want to get crunk. I like what she said, you could be willing to get crunk. But I really love the last one, number 10, where she says, be a light. You know, and I think when we go back to Du Bois's Talented 10th and other theories of how do we help Blacks, you know, how do we get collectively get out of this rut? But we have to talk more about back what does that look like? What does it require? I know the Talented 10th, as Du Bois posed it, you know, these very brilliant, talented individuals were supposed to return to their communities, but when they've not been in community with people, it's almost like a no-brainer. How do you return to a community and do this so-called work with people you're no longer necessarily in community with? I mean, I keep thinking about that when I contemplate Du Bois's Talented 10th theory. So a lot of times when our best and bright, so-called, let me say that, best and brightest go off to Ivy League institutions, you know, and especially with the way social stratification has kind of separated us even more. I don't find many of them to come back to the hood. And maybe that is the conversation, that what happens, you know, and I think we've been touching on this throughout since I've joined this reading circle. Like, I know, Kim, you talk a lot about living in a space that's not gentrified, or, you know, what happens and when we're trying to do work in these spaces. So I loved this one, and I did like this list for this one time. I found something that I adored about a list here, or in a list here.
I enjoyed that list also. I really did. As a matter of fact, I'm going to print it out for my daughter to read and take back with her when she goes back to school. I thought it was an excellent list.
Oh, that is so good.
I really did.
Nicole, when Du Bois was writing, of course, it was pre-integration.
Yeah.
So even though there were plenty of Black folks who were off getting higher education, some of it in the Ivy League, you know, to a large extent, we still live together and we're physically in community with all classes of Black folks. And so that is a very different scenario from what we have now. And I would just say I enjoyed the list and the entire blog, How to Say No and When to Say Yes. Because I think learning to say no is a struggle for a lot of women. But it is important that we develop that capacity. So, you know, so I enjoyed that one.
Yeah, I was thinking, yeah, Michelle, like you were saying, pre-integration, our communities before they were integrated. But when I look at kind of the, you know, old school academics who, or shall I say older, not old school, I don't want to say that, who would have been under those who would have adhered to Du Bois's talented 10th, to me, I just don't, there's such a disconnect. And I guess I'm trying to personally figure out how to get around that disconnect. And I think it's more complex because, again, my class of origin, my social class of origin is working class. So I'm many levels, many rungs removed from how I grew up. So in terms of the university that I attend, you know, but even I'm thinking like, and I really don't want to give them too much time of our valuable time. What's happened with Cornel West and Ta-Nehisi Coates, because Cornel West would have been a direct beneficiary of those educators who would have been a part of the so-called Du Bois's talented 10th. And how, you know, I like the way Aisha Jr. describes it, how he is so willing to get into a pissing contest you know, with Ta-Nehisi Coates, what were they taught about manhood and masculinity? Because overwhelmingly, Du Bois's talented 10th would have been Black men taking advantage of, you know, that kind of first going off, those who went off to those schools. Du Bois, who was also a Harvard guy. I don't think he graduated from Harvard. I don't recall. I don't think so. But how do we, I don't want to get into, you know, it's been so disheartening for me to even watch the Twitter war. Did you all see that, or were you with Ta-Nehisi Coates?
I haven't seen the Twitter war. I did read one article, Cornell's article, and I'm not I'm not trying to defend Cornell, because, you know, I don't know what he's going through, but he did make the point in the article that I was reading. He apparently anticipated the criticism that he would receive, but he was trying to make the point that he has a substantive philosophical difference with Ta-Nehisi, and how can two people talk about their differences without being accused of just having a pissing contest, or, you know, that kind of a thing. And so, you know, and so that makes sense to me. And, you know, and I think in the era that I grew up in, there was much more value placed on the art of criticism. Even Mao Zedong wrote a book called Criticism. But with the basic ideal being that if you're criticizing from a place of love, that if, you know, maybe what you're saying is perfectly valid, and if the person can actually hear it, maybe they can grow, improve, develop, get better, get stronger, and if we're afraid of being lovingly critical with each other, then, you know, where do we find the insight and the impetus to grow? If somebody's always telling you you're perfect, you're perfect, you're perfect, and then going behind your back and talking about, I don't know who she thinks she is. She ain't shit. Really?
That's so true.
Oh, really? I'd much rather have you tell me to my face, even if it hurts, and even if I disagree with it, on the chance that it might give me something to think about. And so I think that something is going on with the younger generation, and I have not heard Ta-Nehisi reply at all to Cornell. But my own experience with younger people these days is really a high sensitivity to criticism. And I don't know where it comes from, but I think that, like I said, there's loving criticism, but there's also criticism that really is designed just to tear you down and beat you up.
Mm-hmm.
And we have so much of that. It's become hard for people to filter out and to recognize when something is coming from a genuinely loving place.
Mm-hmm.
Dang, because the loss is you don't get that insight that helps you grow.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. Yeah, what Ta-Nehisi did was he responded he brought all the receipts on Twitter, like it all unfolded on Twitter. He was like, so, you know, I've been accused of promoting neoliberalism, and or falling prey to it, shall I say. So he started just giving his receipts on Twitter, like, okay, well, I talked about this and I discussed that, and here's this interview, and he had a thread. And so what happened was, you know, because it's like hip hop rhetoric, you know, which is call and response, the great African American rhetorical tradition. What I don't think Ta-Nehisi anticipated is how many people would start responding. Like they have a dog in his fight. And so you I don't know, at some point, I guess it became too much for him because he freaking quit Twitter. So now
Ta-Nehisi quit Twitter?
He quit. You cannot find Ta-Nehisi's Twitter page. It's gone. So it quickly turned into this argument about, you know, a generational divide. Here you have this boomer, and this what Ta-Nehisi would probably be a Gen Xer. He couldn't stay, he couldn't stick around. You know, he got his feelings hurt. He quit. This is what they do. And, you know, then, you know, you had some feminists, Black feminists were saying, well, this is kind of like the patricide. You always, you know, with the men, you know, they got to unseat each other. Some were saying Cornel West doesn't want to pass the baton. He's washed up. It just got vicious. And then you had people like Brittney Cooper and Melissa Harris Perry who were like, okay, well, you know, if y'all tired of that boy fight, come on and read some books by Black women intellectuals, you know. It's just so funny to see this all going down in real time. And I just wonder, to answer your question, the sensitivity. It's so much. The 80s were just families. We started looking so different here in America in the 80s. You didn't necessarily have mom at home who could, you know, if you have a bad day at school, who will say, oh, those children are just mean, and so on. The rise of latchkey children. You have the crack epidemic and just so many things happening. Corporal punishment, you know, taken out of schools, which I don't, you know, agree with anyway. Corporal punishment. I mean, just had all these things happening. I don't know what's happened, but I do know that it's really, I think you're right about something, Michelle. Something's going on around this sensitivity. And then Cornell, it's almost like the symbolic, like, well, the big dog won, you know, like, kind of like, well, I was standing, you know, it's so, interesting. And some people are saying like it's academic elitism because you got Ta-Nehisi Coates, who's a phenomenal writer, right? But he came from an HBCU, is a dropout. These people had to put in work and got PhDs, many of them in very hostile spaces. I don't know. But the boys were fighting this week, y'all.
Well, I'm glad I've been zoned out.
People were like, "Thank you at Cornell West. You actually made TNC quit Twitter."
Nicole.
Yeah.
Nicole. I'm hoping that we can get back to the.
Okay. Yeah. Let's move forward. Yeah.
You don't have to cut the conversation short like that, but I'm just saying that.
Yeah. No, I didn't even want to give the boys our attention like that. All
Yeah.
right. Let's go to the last one.
Okay. Thank you.
So the last one, I just wanted to, so Brittney Cooper talked about, oh, okay. You see Lemon, I went back to his definition of Black work, and he talks about old Black work. And in his text, he says old Black work is like helping white better at being human. But I think that we have to push the envelope some here, farther than what Keyse does. And I was wondering, I want you to get your take on, in what ways could this kind of, because he says that this is work that primarily been performed, of course, by Black women. So I said, does old Black work also need to encompass the work Black women perform in community with other, this notion of being tired Black women attempting to recover from such hidden labor, this labor to teach white people? We could consider pop culture discourse on Black women voters in Alabama. There are a number of things we could discuss here, going back to when Brittney Cooper says, what happens in a world where, having been in a continual rotation of anger, you wake up tired. So she goes on to write, but we're loved, we're angry, we're tired, we're sick of it, and we're cared for. In the midst of this, we find purpose. That purpose is to fight for the world we want to see. And so I'm thinking, like, how could we push this notion, this definition of old Black work to encompass this work that Black women have also had to perform in community with other Black women? And I thought, a concrete example would be to look at our reading circle. How does our reading circle do this work? And then, the follow-up, how could we do this work better? Or any example you all could think of old Black work, but I'm thinking like it has to come back to the work we're also doing in community with each other. So I just wanted to get your take on that. Or, or I wonder, do you all feel like that's, it denigrates to call it, like, I didn't even think about that just at the time, but to describe it as old Black work, does it feel derogatory to you all? Or even if you want to take that up, like just the terminology there, does that feel derogatory? And then does that kind of work even open itself up to when Black women are just saying, we're just tired, or tired Black women? What would you all think there?
No, I don't find it denigrating. I mean, in terms of teaching, helping white folk get better at being more human, I don't think we can avoid it. I don't care how tired we are. And God knows but you know, the bottom line is, you know, we're in this thing together. We're on this planet together. We're in this country together, you know, and people are connected, you know, whether we like it or not. What one does affects the next. And, you know, if Black folk could go off and found their own speaking of the descendants of slaves, Black Americans, if we could go off and found our own nation within a nation, you know, take out a plot of land in Africa, you know, whatever, and be left alone, that could be a beautiful thing. But that's not the devil we're dealing with. I'm a proponent of staying connected to reality. And in reality, white folk, I watch my language, have their hand up everybody's shirt all over the world.
Yes.
And so we are perpetually faced with the question of how do we survive it? Because you know, we have a human right to survival. What they say. So how do we survive it? And so a part of that is doing work that is necessary to try to turn on, bring out, spark the humanity that has been either never developed or driven away from the lives of white folks. So, you know, that's what I think. Yeah, we're tired, but what are you going to do? And, you know, I mean, in terms of like the election that just happened in Alabama, that was all very exciting and everything. But you know, I saw some of the articles of folks talking about, you know, Black women are tired of you know, saving white folks. But what are you going to do? Elect another Donald Trump? It's untenable. So, you know, there is a strain of negativity that runs through our community that is deep and wide. And I wish I was smart enough to figure out how to eradicate it. But apparently I'm not. But, you know, I think that we would do well to focus on the positive aspect of what Black people were able to accomplish when they were motivated and determined to do so, and figure out how to replicate that. Back when I used to do some organization development work, there was, speaking of criticism, there was this this method that we used to do performance evaluations. And it really would have the whole team come together, and the language was each person would say to someone else in the group, what I appreciate about your work this year was blah, blah, body. What I wish we could do more of, or I wish we could do better, is bloody, bloody, bloody.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm saying that's how I wish Black folk could look at the race in Alabama. How can we do that again? How can we make sure that in 2018,
Right. Yes.
do it again? You know, we don't need to go into a depression about being tired and convincing ourselves that there's just no point in participating because the Democrats don't love us and they're all the same. All right, I'm tired.
Wait, did you use the language? You have to invoke the language. Oh my goodness. Anyone else?
I have something to share on this after the recording's done.
Oh,
Okay.
I understand.
I did find it derogatory. I did find the comment, old Black people's work or whatever it is. I did find it derogatory. And I think it's such a missed opportunity to not learn from survival skills and not learn that tenacity that people had to go through, and there were no outlets. There was no Facebook. There was no let me get online and bitch to everybody who'll listen. You had to drink that like water. You had to drink that thing, and you had to find ways not to give it to your children. And I just find it such a missed opportunity that we don't honor our struggles and don't honor what we have come from and how many toilets our grandmother, grandparents had to wash to say that it is old Black people's work. That was work that allowed your great grandfather to stay alive long enough to beget you or begot you. And so your little ass wouldn't have been here had not somebody been trying to humanize the white folks. So I just agree with what Michelle is saying 100% as how do we honor each other's stories generationally? And what this book has helped me to do is to honor the next generation coming up. And I appreciate you, Nicole, because you're telling me that I may have to listen to who this girl is, something B. What's her name?
Cardi B.
Yeah, Connie B. I gotta go check her out now, and I gotta check out Beyonce's sister Solange. And I was just like, oh, she got an album. so I have to practice what I preach, and I have to kind of understand what their voices are and what they're experiencing, and be welcoming to that.
Oh, that's deep. Wow. Woo, that was deep. I don't even, I've got to sit with that kid. My goodness. Ooh. Wow. Well, because you know what? I guess that is the other side of this. Well, the way he describes it in the text is old Black work. So I never read it as old Black people's work. But it could also, I'm thinking in audiences, it could also look that way as well, right? Because they were older. Well,
but why not call it Jim Crow work? Or why not just call it from this period to this period? Why? I guess I'd have to read more to understand it, but viscerally when I hear the phrase, it turns my stomach. So I definitely probably would have to read more and understand the context better. But just hearing it and knowing that, you know, my grandmother, that's how she helped to feed her family, was doing that level of work and being cheated so much. I remember the story was that she cleaned the house for somebody who had one of the department stores downtown Baltimore. And the woman whose house she was cleaning would say to her, well, this month we're not going to pay you. You could go on down to the department store and pick up Easter dresses for your children.
Oh.
She didn't want no Easter dresses. She could have made the Easter dresses. So that wasn't easy. That wasn't easy. I wish that, I think the disservice here is that I don't think my grandmother would have told me, her granddaughter, that story. So then I can't tell that story to my daughter, who can tell it to her daughter, and so that everybody understands where we all are standing and what we're standing on. I just don't think that we have a clue as to who our sheroes are. Because I think that if we did, we'd be so proud.
Yes.
Even though they got bent, they got crazy from the abuse, I'm not saying that it did not have an impact, especially on our ability to openly love each other. I do think it had an impact, but I do think that there are still just heroes and sheroes in our bloodlines.
I guess, well, when I read the essay, well, he's mentioned the term in more than one essay. In fact, he mentioned the term, he wrote about the Ta-Nehisi Coates and Cornel West stuff as well. So he mentioned the old Black work in there as well, and the one that I posted. I think I was drawn to it because it's so very relevant, but then there's this Southern subtext there. And so he talks about like him being a professor at a predominantly white institution and understanding why he was hired. And it's at this institution that he learns the difference between power and privilege. So he was saying like, he had this kind of relative privilege in that space as a Black man to even be there. But the white boys undoubtedly had power. And so he says that he understands why he has been employed. He's been employed because he's continuing that old Black work that to humanize, to make white people kind of see Black people's humanity and to you know, in a way, almost, I guess I should say, save white people from males in particular, from that kind of destructiveness that rage that they can deploy, and other people, you know, feel that, other communities feel that. So what I was thinking was, when people are doing that work, like, okay, if you're in spaces where you're doing that kind of work, then what in general do those people need? Like, I get it on a level all Black people need. I mean, that post-traumatic slavery is just real, right? But then people who've been existing to help white people be better humans, to be able to humanize people of color. Is there something in particular that those Black people would need? Does that make sense?
Can we stop the damn recording, please?
Oh, are we past the time? Okay.
Hold on, Leonie. Before we stop the recording, I wanted to see if Nicole or anyone would respond to the question of how does our reading circle do this work?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I do think we do this work, but the way I was imagining it, because I don't know how you all labor from day to day. So I don't know if I'm in the midst of women who are necessarily doing that work, you know, in those type of circles. But I do think, you know, we're doing an important work regardless. Um, and I, you know, Michelle, I've talked to you mentioned on several occasions, like how do we encourage more reading circles, you know, and just the model that you have constructed here, you know, how do we, you know, pass in what way could I assist? And like, I don't want to, you know, be in another reading circle, but definitely have been encouraging women to get you a reading circle, come to ours, you know, but I do think we're doing that important work. But I was complicating that term, a discussion that we would have to have off air. Because of the way I wanted to complicate that term. In particular, I needed to know women people who are doing that kind of work, do they need something, you know, more? So that's the extent that I could speak to it. I guess we'll
Okay, okay. I got you. So let's stop the recording. So continue our private discussion. Let me just say for the recording, we are in the final night of our reading of Crunk Feminist Collection by Brittney Cooper, Susanna Morris, and Robin Boylorn. And I did want us to do like an overall reflection on the book, but we can skip it and just mention that we are going to be reading Nicole Dennis Benn's book, Here Comes the Sun, whenever we start back up again. And so we have to figure out tonight when we're going to start back. But you can start your reading on this now if you'd like to read along with us. And on that note, I want everyone to have happy holidays and safe holidays. And we will see you next year. Glory together.
Thank you. Thank you, Nicole.
Huh?
Thanks, Nicole.
Bye. You're welcome. You're welcome. Bye, everyone.
Don't leave.
Oh, no.